7 specialists, 8 prescriptions, almost $1 million just for one treatment in a year. I mean, come on, who can do this? I did it and it sucked. And not one of them asked what was actually going on in my body. Let's get into it. For 3 years, nobody found it. Not 7 specialists. The 8 prescriptions didn't help, all the time in the hospital. And for 35 years before that, no one even knew how to look. No one asked. Once it was discovered by accident, it was so obvious. Like the pattern was there. Why wasn't anyone paying attention to me as a whole? Why wasn't anyone asking the right questions? I traveled to Princeton, Harvard, UCSF, and Stanford, not as a practitioner, as a patient. I was searching for answers. I'd run out of options and I refused to accept that this was just me now. And once we figured out what it was, oh my gosh, it was just so clear. It was so obvious. It had been living in my body the whole time. And by the end of this episode, you'll understand exactly what made me sick, why the system missed it, and why the same things getting missed, is happening to millions of people right now. I'm back in Playa. Yay. I'm in my office. This is where I work and where I teach practitioners all the time and work my butt off. And so interesting. It just happened to be back here for this episode, the one where I talk about what made me sick. So turns out I have CVID, which is called Common Variable Immunodeficiency. Don't let the word common fool you. It's the most common of primary immunodeficiencies, which are classified as rare diseases. But it's not common. There's about 6 to maybe 12,000 people in the United States who have it. And I went into my mid to late 30s undiagnosed. No one knew I had it. I didn't know I had it. But again, once we got the labs that showed it and look at the history, it was so obvious. I had tonsillitis all the time, sometimes 8 times a year growing up. That's not normal. But my family didn't pay attention to stuff like this. I didn't have the words for it. You just took the antibiotics and moved on. So I was on antibiotics a lot. There were, allergies, and some people would get sick and get over it fast, and I would get sick forever, right? I remember a family member telling me, you talk about your health too much. So I got the message. You just don't talk about your health. You just go. And so I stopped. And the truth, but I kept having problems, right? Like just because I wasn't talking about it doesn't mean I wasn't experiencing problems. And sometimes the problems became life-threatening. And what? You can't even grok that. Like when I was 18 years old was the first like truly life-threatening thing that happened. And I just couldn't even wrap my head around it, right? And it had to do with the immune issues, but we didn't even have the words for it then. So it actually got found. I mean, things aren't good because I was in my 30s and I had a hematologist in my life. That's not normal. But the hematologist ordered a lab, and the lab ran the wrong test by mistake. So it wasn't even the test that was ordered, and that's how it got found. So immunoglobulin A and immunoglobulin G, your main, infection fighting army. I was low. I didn't have enough. And it was like, what? This result came back. And even the hematologist was like, what? So the first thing you do is you order it again, and it's still there. Okay, so now you have to see an immunologist. Even when I see an immunologist, they might only have a handful of cases like me throughout their medical career. A lot of what they're doing is different immune issues and mostly allergy, right? So yeah. It was found by accident. And if they hadn't made that mistake, I have no idea when it would have been found. And then my primary care physician, she didn't understand it. I mean, she was lovely, but she was just working in the system. She doesn't know what it means. She'd never seen anyone with it. So no one really explained it. And when I looked up the possible treatment, IVIG infusions, I was like, no, thank you. I'm not interested in that. So I just went into denial. No one fully explained it. And definitely no one told me like the risk when you're not getting treatment for it. And that decision sort of cost me everything that came up next. Now, the things like the TBIs, the traumatic brain injuries, that just made me more vulnerable. Those were physical from car accidents. They were physical injuries. It certainly didn't help. But the immune thing really is the big problem. So you already heard me tell the story of the tire that crashed through the sunroof of my car in my early 20s. If you missed that story, go back, because really. And then the second one was when Nikita was just a baby, was certain months old. She was less than a year. I can't remember how many months. I could do the math, like 7 months or something. And another car accident, and that one was a doozy. And I went and saw Dr. Peter Mueller. He's since passed. He was an amazing doctor out of Princeton, quite a character. He was a medical advisor to two presidents. His specialty was in psychiatry, and he ran a brain injury support group, and he did research. He's such a character. And in 50 years of medical practice, his claim to fame was he'd only hospitalized a person once. When I had that trouble later and I got so sick, I'll say that in a minute, he was the first person I thought to reach out to, and found out he had just died like 2 weeks earlier. Ugh, it was painful. It's just another thing that made me feel so alone, because he was wild. He had a really high IQ. His wife, I think, was a saint, and he fought for his patients, though. Those kinds of practitioners, they fight for their patients, and he was one of those. So Nikita was a baby, and it was, I think, early 2004, like less than a year after the car accident. And I flew out there with my mom, and I did 11 hours of neuropsych testing, which is like IQ testing and spatial relations, and, trying to look at all the function of the brain. I did a functional MRI. I did a SPECT scan. We did blood labs. We did a whole lot of everything, and was shocked when he diagnosed me with a brain lesion. Go ahead. I have a boo-boo on my brain. Like, I'm sorry. I just, I was like 30, 31. I just couldn't even take it in. But he was a great guy. I remember he said to my mom, I'm just like stunned. And my mom's like, what? Remember, I love my mom. She's there with me. She wants answers for me, but she doesn't know shit about anything medical. Okay. And she's just like, what? What does this mean? And he said to her, which gives you an idea of his character. And they had documented my IQ had slipped about 20 points from like previous testing and where it was now. And I had a contre-coup injury. Like, what do you expect, right? And he said, don't worry, half my medical class at Princeton would give their left nut to have her IQ. Okay, that's doctor language. But no, he was a great guy, and he helped treat me for the symptoms he saw me dealing with. About a year later, I was like, I don't know if I buy all this, I don't want to have a brain lesion. I'm not really into that. Like, let's come up with a different story of why I was still suffering. Now we're like 2 years after the car accident. I had a really hard time reading. Little did I know it was going to take 7 years before I could read normally again. And I was raising a baby by myself. And I don't know if you know this or if you have kids or not, but kids, largely learn how to read from parents reading to them. And I couldn't really read to her. I had a bunch of books for her, but I couldn't really read them. So I would tell her stories. And I'll tell you a bit about what I was going through at that time, but I would tell her these stories. And anyway, she's a writer now. That was really cool. But she had the worst first grade teacher, an absolute nightmare. I can't believe this woman is still, teaching. I saw her abuse a different boy in the classroom. And the boy's mom and myself said it to the school administrators all the way up to the superintendent of the district. They never did anything. And this teacher's making 6 figures. She should be working like as a jail warden and not as a teacher. It's so frustrating. And again, I was just too young. I didn't know. I thought justice will prevail. The people in charge will do the right thing, and they will take care of things. Oh God, if I was doing it now, I would have just yanked her out of there, right? Instead, I took her to a hypnotherapist, as you do when you have a 6-year-old, right? And a teacher's being mean. She never physically hurt my child, but she was just mean, right? And so I did. I took her to a hypnotherapist and made a CD that was super positive and affirming. I played it every night for a year. Why am I saying all this? Because Nikita was behind on reading, and I loved to read as a kid. And so when we got to second grade, she had the most amazing teacher ever, which was very healing after the first grade experience. But, she was behind in reading, and I said to the teacher what to do. And it was right then, Nikita was 7 years old now, I was able to start reading again. And she said, just read to her. And thank you for that advice. And this one was so lovely. She knew me from having gone to school there 30 years earlier. So she said, or I guess 25 years earlier, she said, just read to her. So I did. I got up early every morning, and I'm not a morning person. And this was the time of like Charlie Bone and Harry Potter and, The Witch in the Wardrobe and, all those books. And so I read those to her for about 45 minutes. Every night and like an hour every morning. And so I just read morning and night. And so in second grade, she had like a kindergarten reading level, maybe getting into first grade. And by the end of sixth grade, I didn't teach her how to read. I didn't do any of that. She was reading at sixth grade level. So yay, you were right. So anyway, that was a good experience in the midst of some challenges. But yeah, a couple years after that car accident, before Nikita was in these schools, I called Dr. Mueller and I was like, come on, has to be something else. And he was doing the best he could with what he knew, right? And he's like, well, let me send you to Dr. Schomer. He doesn't see patients anymore. This is Donald Schomer. He was the head of neuroepilepsy at Harvard. So he agreed to see me and did a full exam and tests and ran a PET scan, and then went back and looked at the previous testing. He was able to confirm not only was the brain lesion there, but there were a couple other that hadn't been diagnosed, but you could see them. Now that you had another one to check to, you could go back and see them. So instead of getting the answers I was hoping for, I got sort of a doubling down on it. And basically it set me up for a neurological vulnerability. So every prior injury makes anything subsequent hit harder, and just sort of, sensitivity in the brain at all. So what is it? What is it that happened? What is it that happens next? Well, let me pause for 1 second. Oh, sorry, it just brings up emotions and I need some air. Is this even on? Okay. I think mostly I'm just trying to distract myself because it just brings up a lot of feelings. It's a really hard time and I don't like talking about it. So when that car accident happened and I had this baby girl, I had been doing all the things for the dad who was older. We'll talk about Bob in a different episode. He deserves his own. And that was fine. That's why I'm not a big fan of the big age differences, is because there's always a power dynamic. And especially if you're the more flexible one, then you're always going to be so flexible and so adaptable to the point where you get lost. And the big problem here is he was a rageaholic. I mean, it didn't matter what it was about. It could be the garbage cans. He was losing his shit over anything. That really stressed me out. I didn't like that. I didn't see that before we got married. That was a surprise afterwards. Again, too young and too naive. It just, what you see is what you get. I thought everyone else was like that. Not true. So when I had a car accident, I was having a hard time. He was not happy. He was definitely not happy. And when I ended up leaving him and sort of just fleeing in the night, he got violent and I was like grabbing my kid. I'm like, that's it. I'm out of it. I left everything. I left the house I bought. I left the furniture, the clothes. I just left. Clothes on my back and that's it. And he was so out of hand. It was even his daughter who called my mom that night. But yeah, he's a real piece of work. And he specifically read a book on traumatic brain injury and the vulnerability. He's a DC also, and what can happen with chronic fear, and then use that against me. I mean, it's so Machiavellian. Do people like that really exist? I mean, it's still hard to believe, but yes, I guess they do really exist. And the only reason I know it is because he told me and showed me. As if that's not creepy enough, later when our daughter graduated from college, he gave her the book. What a freak. Who holds on to that book for 20 years? This is going to be a great graduation gift for her. This is the book I used to terrorize her mom. Awful. Anyway, the chronic fear layer. So I had made a lot of money for us in the few years that we were together. He just used it all as a threat, like he was going to take Nikita and put her in daycare for 12 hours a day. I just gave him everything. Even Nikita's accounts. He took everything, took the baby's accounts. What a jackass. But I didn't care. She's my $1 million kid. Totally worth it. So I just gave him everything, but he just like kept me in court and that chronic fear. So that doesn't help. That does measurable biological damage. And so here you've had car accidents. Chronic fear suppresses immune function. It elevates cortisol. It disrupts gut health. The gut and brain communicate all the time. And it actually changes, and it affects the hippocampus and hypothalamus, but it also changes the shape of the amygdala. It does damage you can't recover from. So I was dealing with that. Fun, good times. And then 2013 hit. This was, out of all these problems and all this stuff, I bounced back, or at least a little bit of a bounce. 2013, that really took me down. That it started at the end of 2012. I got a UTI, and life was great at the time. Okay, I'm finally out of the divorce, and sorry, I don't want to talk about this stuff ever. It's just really hard. I'm out of the divorce. I'm running a business, doing consulting at the time. I had a new bestseller book published, my first book published by McGraw-Hill out of New York. We had a great book launch. And then I get this UTI. Okay, fine. I'm busy. Things are going on. And I just go to my primary care physician. She gives me the antibiotics. I take them, but the UTI doesn't go away. I have the immunodeficiency. We actually know the primary care physician at this point who's prescribing the antibiotics knows this, but doesn't understand it. So then another round, then another round, then another round, 4 rounds, 4 months, wipes out my microbiome. And then I get a kidney infection. I end up in the hospital. I'm on double IV antibiotics. I have to take oral antibiotics after that. That's it. So systemic Candida, I was the one who ended up ordering the labs. No one even thought to look. A lot of people don't know this. I had to read like all of PubMed to find it, but systemic Candida can reactivate Epstein-Barr virus. It never truly goes away. I had it when I was younger in college, right? And so then I had a reactivated Epstein-Barr, had to order those labs. So it was sort of a complete system shutdown. And you can see it. You can see it in research, but no one was looking. I was the only person who looked. So as I was experiencing this and didn't have those answers, what the hell was going on? I got tossed between 7 different specialists who wouldn't talk to each other, 8 prescriptions, labs that no one knew how to interpret, or they didn't order the right ones. They just called it depression. So then I would go see a psychiatrist. Oh my God, some of them were so bad. I've seen a few that were okay, but so many of them, like, what the heck? I swear they're the only specialty that doesn't look at the organ they're treating. They just throw like cocktails of medicine at you, that will make you nuts, right? Just absolute bonkers, instead of doing, real labs. And then getting the ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, shocked my brain 20 times, most of it bilateral. I think the first 7 were unilateral and then 13 bilateral, which really increases the risk. I'm lucky I can think at all right now, I published 5. That's why you're in my office where I normally film for teaching practitioners. I published 5 books last year. I've done 8 in total now. It used to be 7, but now we're at 8. And they were doing this ECT for what was fundamentally an infection and immune dysregulation. I'm still sort of pissed, And at first I was angry at my mom, really angry at my mom. I felt very betrayed. One of my goals has been to never get so sick that someone else makes decisions about my health. And I get it. She doesn't know shit about health, even though I spent so many years trying to teach her. It's just not her thing. And a lot of people are like that. They don't know. And then a doctor says something, you're like, okay, I'm not going to challenge it. I'm going to believe it. They say this is the best thing, then let's go ahead and do it. But what the heck's wrong with those doctors? Oh God, I could tell you more about it. It's a nightmare. I don't know. Maybe I will at some point, but it was awful. It was absolutely awful. And I'm sick at the time, and all I'm trying to do is take care of my kid that I fought so hard for, and like live a life. After all that nightmare, I did turn off the air. Let's cool down a little bit. It's not really that hot. It's me. I'm just trying not to cry. Okay, so I'm sorry if this isn't even watchable. It's just really hard to talk about. I never talk about this. I never talk about this shit. Even the terrible divorce that I went through, it was over a decade. I talked about it for 2 years. That's it. And then you don't talk about it anymore because it's unbelievable. He had investigators, as I'm taking care of our daughter, jumping out of bushes and taking pictures of us. Oh God, it was a nightmare. And he put out so many lies, had 11 attorneys at one time. I mean, it was just, I couldn't make up these stories. I couldn't believe, if I read it in a book, I wouldn't believe it, let alone living it, Okay, so anyway, I get the friggin' ECT done. And sure, that'll get rid of depression for a little bit. It'll also get rid of your ability to talk and think and remember and know who you are. And if it works for someone and you choose to do it, fabulous. Like, I am not anti-medicine or anti-prescriptions or any of that. I know it can be life-saving. I'm just pissed for someone to get it when they don't need it. And here I've had traumatic brain injuries. What the hell are you doing? Like, purposely giving a seizure to a brain that's already fragile for infection. Really? Oh, all right. So after all that nightmare experience and finding functional medicine, reactivating my license as a DC, and even having a chiropractic education, for those of you who don't know, because I know a lot of people have this wacky idea, oh, they just crack your back. Okay, whatever. It's essentially a medical education. It's the same. It's the same friggin' requirements. There's a little bit of difference. Like, we have more neurology, they have more pharmacology, right? We have more nutrition. Where it really differs is when someone goes into residency. But those first 4 years, it's essentially the same. Medical people go into residency, and that's where they really learn how to be a doctor and practice and work in a hospital, pick their specialty, get board certified, all of that. Hard work, well earned, right? Chiropractors, they're like, good luck, go start a business. And then people do it all different. They're so different in how they do it. But even with that education and learning all that medical information, some of which it's like, why do I have to learn how to do a proctology exam? I'm not going to do it, right? And getting tested on stuff that is very unlikely I would need to know. I still wasn't prepared to know this stuff. So I had to go back and start taking classes, seminars, continuing education, track down practitioners, different specialists, functional medicine doctors, talk to people around the world. I really did. I was just searching for answers while I was sick the whole time, while my brain was saying every day for 18 months, like, you should be unalive. That's the most, it's calm. It was very calm. It's a very logical thing to do. And it's like, I'm a mom, this is the plan that I want. So I reactivated my own license. When I was consulting, I wasn't using it. I taught a lot of medical people, but I also was consulting with attorneys and real estate agents. And, people had to get their own clients. Really, that's what they all had in common. They were entrepreneurs. And so I had reactivated my own license, which was a lot of work, so I could order my own labs. because I couldn't find doctors who would put all the pieces together, even when I was putting the research in front of them. So that's what I did. And then once I had the labs, you know, I could get some people to start paying attention. It was still never enough. Even to this day, I really have to advocate for myself. When I started that first clinic and started taking care of people, I was just like, I just want to help them a bit. I want no one to go through what I did. If I can just help them a little bit, it's going to be worth it. And little did I know what was going to come. I was going to share with people. I was going to teach them. The clinic was going to explode. People would drive 4 hours, fly from out of state to come see me. And I would get more and more and more complex cases, which I wasn't necessarily looking for. But when you yourself are a complex case, and then you help one person who's a complex case, they tell everyone else. I had Lyme patients who were on disability, and just, I remember this one gentleman, sweetheart, but he was a shadow of himself. And he got back to work. He was able to get off disability and live a life. And it was just really, really awesome stories. Got to help make babies, got to work with children. The most I ever worked with was 4 generations, was a medical family. I caught a rare immune issue. Actually, my condition, which is so rare, I identified 3 or 4 over the case of my functional medicine clinic career, which is very unusual, but it's because I knew what to look, and it's an inexpensive lab. So anyway, this has obviously been a passion of mine. And mental health symptoms. I don't even like the term mental health, because mental makes it seem like it's your fault. You're mental, you're crazy, right? No, this is just an expression. Like, there's always a reason. You have to know what to look for. And I have to give Dr. Mueller credit for that. I mean, he said it in the most non-PC way. He said, he showed me a cartoon of 2 polar bears hugging each other, 2 guys hugging each other. He said, that's the only bipolar I've ever seen. Like, okay. But I was a young woman. He was introducing that idea to me, that depression or anxiety or a mood issue or anger or too much sleep or, you know, whatever it was, could have a physiological reason. And so Princeton and Harvard were the start of that, and learning that from a patient perspective, going through the system, all these sort of nightmare experiences later, and then something I actively studied and researched on my own, and then started working with patients myself. I know, me at DC, you're not supposed to do that, right? Ah, fuck that. And fuck them, right? I don't care. All right. I just wanted someone who would ask questions. And if no one else was going to ask questions, then I was going to ask the questions. And I can't tell you how many people I worked with and how many methods I had to create to really help them. And again, my goal is like, live to fight another day. Do whatever you need to, even if it's ECT. If you need to live to fight another day, that's goal number 1. But then goal number 2, what the heck is going on? And for me, it was really an infection. We were electrocuting an infection. That's what is crazy, right? And I worked with PANs and pandas and did a lot of research on that, and really looked at what people were talking about it around the world. I ran my own brain autoimmune panel. 4 out of 5 markers were positive. So my immune system was actively munching on tissue in my brain. It's a lay explanation of it, but I don't want to make this too medical. Found 2 Lyme-associated bacteria. You know, once you get the whole picture, it made sense. And quite honestly, I'm working on a paper with some of my staff about this, so hopefully we'll put it out, because medical people need to get this, and not just the lay people. I know that's who I'm talking to, because I train the medical people all the time, and it's awesome and it's making a difference, but it's still a small piece of the pie. And that's why I'm doing that. And that's why I'm sharing these friggin' stories that I never talked to anyone about, is because I'm going to the public. That's why Diagnose This exists. We need to have an army of informed patients who are going to change healthcare from the inside out. So I want you to show up at your primary care physician appointment, or your psychologist or psychiatrist, or your gastrointestinal, or your rheumatologist, or your OBGYN, whoever you're seeing. I want you to show up informed. So Diagnose This is going to help answer your questions and give you a provider-ready summary. If you're going to functional medicine, you're going to a naturopath, you're doing integrative care, whomever, whichever way you're doing it, like it's your body. And I want you to feel supported. I don't want anyone to ever feel as alone as I was. I was really lucky to make it through it. So I started to say the paper I'm working on. I'm trying to work to show. Some people are talking about this, but it's poo-poo. It took years to get PANS and PANDAS really identified. And it's in adults too. Adults even get it. Sometimes it's a case that wasn't correctly identified as a pediatric patient, but sometimes they're just getting it. Of course they're getting it. Look at how the infection happens. So I think I have enough documentation now to be able to present it. So we're working on that. But when adults have these kinds of infections that impact their brain, it might be more diffuse, more chronic. It might get called treatment-resistant depression. The lab tests don't know how old you are. We want to look and see what's going on, right? So there's always a physiological reason. In my experience, there's always a physiological reason. Sometimes we don't know what it is. Sometimes it might be like a genetic snip that hasn't been identified yet. But you deserve someone who's going to look for it and not shame you or make you feel like you're wrong or give you some label that isn't accurate. There's probably more I should say about all this, but it was really hard just getting that out. So 7 specialists, 3 years, nearly $1 million a year in medical care. Not one of them asked what was actually happening inside my body. I had a primary immunodeficiency. It had been undiagnosed for so long, but we knew I had it at this point. A lab panel caught it by accident. Brain lesions that had been documented from a car accident, and it was like, whatever. It's just electrocutor anyway. A microbiome, my gut, right, that's been so damaged. I'd been fighting a losing war for years. And then chronic fear from a decade-long, dealing with a sadist ex-husband who really got his kicks out of trying to torture me. Probably the hardest battle I've ever fought. Harder than all the medical stuff, but making the medical stuff so much worse. And to know someone was doing it knowingly, that's the really hard part. And chronic fear, like I said, it does physiological damage every single day. All of it was findable, but no one else found it. I had to find it myself. So the system is not just broken. It is not designed to look for this. As soon as there's some complexity, as soon as there's something chronic, as soon as we're looking at a structural issue and an immune issue, forget it. No one's ever looking at your whole body. No one's asking the real questions. No one's asking why. Why is this happening? Or you're told you're fine when you're not fine. Or you're given some weird diagnosis that's not even a match. So that's what Diagnose This is about. Come find us. I'll share the link. Now, episode 9 is next. It's called $927 a month, then $6 million a year. Actually, I did $7 million in here. Every number, every jump, every decision. If you've ever started from nothing, this episode will be yours. Subscribe if you haven't. Like, subscribe, share, do all those podcasty things you're supposed to do. If this episode just explained something to you or gave you the idea that maybe there is an explanation for your thing and someone's not digging deep enough, then yeah, subscribe, share it. I hope it gives you a light of hope. Send it to someone who needs it. And then next, let's talk about what I did on the other side. Because there is a happy ending, and you deserve a happy ending too. From $927 a month in disability to $6 million on a laptop. Let's go, baby. Finally, the story's about to change, and I'm going to tell you how. Let's watch episode 9 next.